Moralia, Volume 2. A further selection of essays by Plutarch. Read by Matthew Lloyd Davies for Ukemi Audiobooks. On Listening to Lectures. The discourse which I gave on the subject of listening to a lecture I have written out and sent to you, my dear Nicander, so that you may know how rightly to listen to the voice of persuasion, now that you are no longer subject to authority, having assumed the garb of a man. Now absence of control, which some of the young men for want of education think to be freedom, establishes the sway of a set of masters, harsher than the teachers and attendants of childhood, in the form of the desires, which are now, as it were, unchained. And just as Herodotus says that women put off their modesty along with their undergarments, so some of our young men, as soon as they lay aside the garb of childhood, lay aside also their sense of modesty and fear, and, undoing the habit that invests them, straightway become full of unruliness. But you have often heard that to follow God and to obey reason are the same thing. And so I ask you to believe that in persons of good sense, the passing from childhood to manhood is not a casting off of control, but a recasting of the controlling agent, since instead of some hired person or slave purchased with money, they now take as the divine guide of their life reason, whose followers alone may deservedly be considered free. For they alone, having learned to wish for what they ought, live as they wish. But in untrained and irrational impulses and actions there is something ignoble, and changing one's mind many times involves but little freedom of will. We may find a comparison in the case of newly naturalized citizens. Those among them who were alien-born and perfect strangers find fault with many of the things that are done, and are discontented, whereas those who come from the class of resident aliens, having been brought up under our laws and grown to be well acquainted with them, have no difficulty in accepting what devolves upon them, and are content. And so you, who have been brought up for a long time in contact with philosophy, and have from the beginning been accustomed to philosophic reasoning as an ingredient in every portion of early instruction and information.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?